Feast TV is brought to you with support by Missouri Wines, Whole Foods Market, and Roth Distributing. This month, we are totally focused on Missouri wine, and we are going to be going all the way across the state and introducing you to people that are part of the local wine industry. I'm going to be making a recipe by Christy Augustin, who is the owner of Pint Size Bakery in South City. She's one of our newest columnists, and so she, in honor of the Missouri wine issue, created a recipe for Sabayon, which is a really fantastic, rich custard that very often incorporates ice wines. And so we're going to be using this ice wine that was made by Montel in the Augusta region. And we're gonna be pairing that with some gorgeous berries as well as a brown butter and pistachio shortbread. So ice wine, if you've never had it, it's very rich and it's almost syrupy. The way that it's made is winemakers will leave the grapes on the vine far into the season to the point where they actually go through the very first frost, and then they are gathered and pressed. So during that long hang time, the grapes become very concentrated, and then when they're frozen on the vine, that juice becomes even more concentrated. So when it's pressed, it is just rich and sweet and delicious. So this is going to really add that wonderful, nuance to the Sabayon. Now, before I get started with this fabulous dessert, let's head over to Hermann, Missouri and watch the Norton picking.
This time of year, I usually get up around 5 a.m. I get up, eat. I usually check the weather out. It's the first and most important thing I do. I'll check in with employees, make sure everyone's coming in and getting people at the right farm in the right place. When I come into work, most of the drives in the morning are anywhere from 20 to 30-mile drive. It's all through the back roads. I very rarely see another car. Usually the only thing I see driving in the morning is deer. So right now we're in the middle of October. We have 3 or 4 days left of picking. Right now we're picking Norton grapes. We're in Kempersburg Vineyard in Gasconade County. We're up on the second bluff off the Missouri River. We're at about 900 feet elevation. As the vineyard manager, I oversee Stone Hill's vineyards. They consist of about 200 acres in production of wine grapes. The family owns about 2,000 acres, which we all manage. It's the quality with hand picking. Hand picking's very slow. It's picking one cluster at a time, looking at it, putting it in the tray, and going to the next one. So you can do, a lot of sorting in the field, and then when we also pick up all the trays, we dump them over a sorting table again, and we'll sort them for a second time. So we really make sure what's going in that bin is absolutely the best grapes we have. There's a lot of rewards, to working at a winery and vineyard in Missouri, and a lot of rewards to working at Stone Hill here in Hermann. I'm just grateful that, I can do such a great job and I can employ, 18, 20 people, and, we all get to do pretty much what we love, work outside every day, enjoy the weather, enjoy the scenery. And then the other part is, I think myself and most of my guys that work for me take a lot of pride in, being such an award-winning winery, and, all the consistent awards Stone Hill keeps winning, the Governor's Cup and, just countless awards. And like today, when we're done picking, this afternoon, we're gonna start sending all the grapes into the winery where they're actually gonna crush them and put them into the bins. So this also, us starting early allows the winemakers, they start late and work late. So we pretty much have to run 2 8-hour shifts in the same day every day. Well, I've definitely always been an outdoors person from when I was really little, just playing in the yard to riding 4-wheelers to hunting to working with my grandfather at the farm, As soon as I could walk, I pretty much been on a tractor, and it's all I really wanted to do. You know, I didn't realize I was so into grapes until I was in my 20s, but I knew I always wanted to work, you know, outside in agriculture and do something along these lines, and the grapes just seemed to be a good fit. You know, I think the real neat part of this is when people open up a bottle of wine, you know, they'll get a little bit of insight of, you know, how labor-intensive growing grapes is. And, you know, they're not just made in a month or two and put in a bottle. I mean, it takes a full year of, you know, non-stop labor and care of the grapes. You know, then it takes up to another year or better in the winery, you know, to make that bottle of wine, and, you know, all the background, all the work that goes into it. And that's what's interesting to me is, you know, the constantly ever-changing battle with nature, and, you know, working out the balance of, you know, everything from the soil to the vigor to, you know, there's countless things to balance in the vineyard, and it's changing, and every year is different in the vineyard. You know, every year we have different weather and different challenges. I feel real privileged to be taking care of these grapes now, you know, and thinking back, you know, maybe 100 years ago when the first vineyard manager, you know, the first person making wine planted these, and looking over the years of all the different people that taken care of them, and vineyard workers that have pruned them every year, and the vineyard managers who've made decisions, and how, you know, it's an honor for me to take care of them now and to pass them on, you know, to future generations, and, you know, they're going to be here potentially forever. When I drop the grapes off, you know, they're out of my hand and in the winemaker's hand, and it's up to them, you know, to continue the quality and to put all the work into them, you know, that we've done out in the vineyard.
What's really interesting about the Norton picking at Stone Hill is that they still do it by hand, but that is the only grape that they harvest by hand. The rest of the grapes that they harvest are done mechanically. I'm gonna get started on the shortbread cookies. There are 4 ounces of room temp butter and then just a little bit of salt in the bowl. And I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of sugar and then 1/4 cup of brown sugar, just the zest of half of a lemon. Now I'm going to cream this until it is light and fluffy. So we've got the egg yolk. I'm just going to eyeball this. A little bit of vanilla. And just quickly incorporate that. Shortbread is so easy to make, and it is one of my absolute favorite cookies. It's so rich, all that butter. Okay, 1.25 cups of just plain old flour, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And again, just incorporate that until it's well combined. Now that this has come together, I'm gonna go ahead and chop up my 1 cup of pistachios. And if you want to use a different nut or no nuts at all, you are welcome to. It's entirely up to you. You can even add chocolate chips if you would like. Now I'm just going to incorporate these with my hands. This will now bring the dough together, and you can just see how thick it is, the consistency, and that is very characteristic of a shortbread. Now what you want to do is just form your dough into a log that's about 12 inches long and roughly 1.5 inches thick. And then you're going to wrap that up in parchment paper and pop it in the fridge for several hours or into the freezer. And the reason why you do that is you can see how soft the dough is. We're going to be cutting these into like little discs essentially. And if you have it, if it's too soft, it'll just fall apart on you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the freezer, and let's head back out to Stone Hill and meet Dave Johnson, who's the winemaker. He takes the grapes that Nick just picked and sends them through the press.
We've just received a bunch of Norton grapes, a number of tons that Nick Pehle, who is our vineyard manager, has delivered to us. We're now going to take the grapes and begin the processing. The first step of that is to put the grapes through our destemmer, and that basically separates the grapes from the stems, discarding the stems, which we return to the vineyard for compost. But the grapes then are pumped to a tank, and that's because the the flavors, a lot of the flavors and the color and the tannin, the things that make Norton wine the special wine it is, are located in the skins. So we have to ferment the entire grape rather than immediately press the grape and separate the juice. Once the wine goes through the fermentation on the skins, sometimes called the cuisine, and is pressed, and we have something much more like what people would associate with red wine, then it comes into a cellar like this and put into barrels for the barrel aging process. And so typically our Norton spends about a year in barrels, exactly like this. And that aging process is very important to take the wine and change it from being, you know, a nice, enjoyable, but yet somewhat simple, grapey flavored red wine, not bad, and make it into something special. Well, you know, I have been doing this for 35 years, and I've really enjoyed it the whole time, because every year is a new year. It's not like doing the same old thing every time. And I do feel that I'm at least partly responsible, along with Jim and Betty Held, the owners of the winery, for bringing Norton back almost from the grave. You know, that was a variety that was nearly lost, that wasn't being used to make fine red wines, and now it is. So it's one of my, you know, I guess, feelings of success is to have played a big part in that. Our philosophy is to make the very best Missouri wines we can, because that's unique. You know, do we really need another Cabernet Sauvignon on the store shelf? I mean, people already are lost when they. So instead, we've chosen to make wines like Norton and Vignoles, wines that are unique to Missouri, and I think that that's you know, at the heart and soul of the philosophy that Stone Hill has. Well, when somebody, you know, drinks a glass of Stone Hill wine, I hope that, you know, they're tasting a little bit of history, a little bit of what makes Missouri special, and not just a glass of wine, you know, not just something that they bought at the store and have no connection with. And that's why I think when people come here and see the old cellars and the history, that it helps them to become fans of Missouri wine. And it's our job to make those wines of outstanding quality as well.
So this is nice and chilled now, and we have it out of the fridge. I actually have a number of Stone Hill wines in my cellar, and those Nortons, they age beautifully. I actually have one from 2006. They are fantastic. So I am just very simply slicing this dough into rounds. The oven is preheated to 350, and these are only gonna have to bake for roughly 6 to 8 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. So these have come out of the oven and they are nice and cool and they are gorgeous, and I can't wait to eat them. So obviously wine typically comes in a bottle, but there is a new trend of wineries kegging their wine to protect it. And Les Bourgeois, which is out near Columbia, Missouri, is at the leading edge of this new trend.
So in the early 90s, Les Bourgeois switched from just really having a picnic location to serve our wines at to really a full wholesale production winery. In the late 90s, we opened a restaurant, and that was really another big change for our winemaking. We really started getting a lot more food friendly and really broadened our winemaking portfolio to wines that could kind of pair with what our chefs were doing and vice versa. The concept of doing wine on tap is something I've been kind of watching with friends of mine that make wine on the West and East Coast. So it's become a pretty big subsection of the wine industry. I thought it would be a good opportunity for Les Bourgeois and for Missouri wines to really get a little foot in the door or some introduction into some on-premise or restaurant accounts. The real benefit to the wine on tap is you open a bottle of wine on Saturday, you pour 2 glasses out of it, and then it sits there. That wine's really not showing its full potential, and sometimes it really should be dumped out the drain. So wine on draft allows you to have that same, I don't want to say like just open feeling, but it allows you to have that same quality, consistency through the entire 2 cases of wine that are in the keg.
We got into some earlier projects where we made a carbonated wine product. So we had the kegs available to us to use. It was a pretty easy transition to go from that sparkling product into just a still wine product. And then we started seeing a demand for it with some other clients that we served. Once we started looking at it a little harder, it seemed like a logical thing to do.
Last year was kind of our pilot program. We placed a few restaurants in St. Louis, a few in Kansas City. If local wineries are pairing with restaurants, that we can really showcase some of the best Missouri wines and have more diversity in the restaurants as well.
I think it's a great way to get more of our wines in people's mouths. So one of the problems that Missouri and Midwestern wineries in general have always kind of battled is getting on that list. Most all Missouri wineries are making a dry red, a dry white, but they a lot of times get lost in the shuffle. So I think by offering this format, we're going to be able to get a little more exposure.
2 years ago, there were 3 or 4 restaurants that had it in the state of Missouri. There are 20 to 30 currently in that number. I'm expecting to double in the next year. More and more restaurants are understanding the benefit of wines on tap. For us to take advantage of that as an industry gives us kind of a competitive advantage over wineries that are further away. They're 2,000 to 3,000 miles away. So we chose 2 dry wines. The Soleil, our dry white. It's a real great kind of crisp, fruit-forward, pretty food-friendly wine, but also a wine that you can have as more of a cocktail or a glass of wine before dinner or a glass with a salad. The Jeanette Rouge is a blended dry red, mostly Missouri grapes, Chamberson, Little St. Vincent, but we also have a little Syrah in there that we age in oak. So it has a little bit of age, a little bit of tannin, but a lot of big bright fruit. So really good. I like to think of the Jeanette Rouge as a great everyday red wine. The beautiful thing about wine on tap is it not only preserves quality, it also is a more sustainable packaging. So you're ensuring the highest quality wine, but you're also doing things that are better for the environment. You're not throwing away bottles. Every time you fill a keg, that is 26 bottles of glass or bottles of wine that you'd be throwing away. So if you get a completely reusable container, such as a keg, you're greatly reducing the environmental impact of the product. I think more we have our products and Missouri products in restaurants, the more it just builds the entire industry. And we'll take it as far as it'll go.
What's really fantastic about those wine keg systems is that not only does it protect the wine from oxidation, but it also allows more Missouri wines to be available by the glass, which is a huge win for the industry. So I'm excited for what the guys over at Les Bourgeois are doing. Now we are going to start the Sabayon, and I'm going to start off with whipping some cream. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold the custard once it's finished into this whipped cream. And I just need 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream, and I'm just gonna whip it by hand. You want your whipped cream to be at medium peaks. So that means that when you pull your whisk up, that they just fall over just a little bit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stick this in the fridge so it stays nice and cool. Okay, so the whipped cream is in the refrigerator, and now I'm gonna go ahead and separate 5 eggs, because all I need is 5 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. So we're adding just a pinch of salt and 1 cup of sugar. And now I'm just going to split and seed this vanilla bean. You can use vanilla extract if you want to in this recipe, But if you really want that rich, full vanilla flavor, you can't beat the real thing. It's a lot easier to do this than you think. All you do is take a very sharp knife, paring knife, just run it down the bean. It splits right open. All you have to do is just run the back of your knife, and there you go. And now, the star of the show, we're going to be adding the ice wine, and just a half a cup. This is what really takes the flavor of this Sabayon like completely over the top. Just whisk everything together, get it nicely combined. It's so fun to see the process of how this comes together because it starts out looking like this, kind of a soupy mess. And when it's finished, it is this gorgeous lemony yellow. Okay, I have over on the stove just a big pot of boiling water, and I'm going to now put this on top. It's called a double boiler, and it's an extremely gentle way to cook. All right, so once you put this on the double boiler, you can't walk away because you have to whisk it constantly, and make sure that you scrape down the sides so that all the egg yolk doesn't cook and coagulate on the sides of the bowl. So I'm gonna stand here for about 15 minutes whisking and transforming this into a gorgeous custard. Now, our local wines are best paired with our local foods, and down at Chaumette Winery, Chef Adam Lambay is making a perfect example of that.
What characterizes Missouri wine in general is that they are very diverse in style. There are some magnificent dry wines and some terrific off-dry, semi-dry, and sweet wines too. Missouri isn't just defined by one specific style of wine.
The wine is a huge influence on the menu itself. As we go through the seasons, you know, when it's warm outside, you tend to drink the light whites, and the menu represents that in a lot of ways. And then as obviously we tend to drink the reds in the warm or the colder parts of the year. And that affects our menu in a lot of ways in that we tend to braise things in red wine in the winter. And in the summer, I like to use a lot of our Chardonnay vinegar, actually made from Chardonnay, to make light salads and slaws and those kinds of things. What we use at Chaumette, not only does it grow in our area, the local terroir, the nutrients those plants derive from the ground is the same nutrients that our grapes derive from the ground. What grows together, goes together. It's really simple. When it's plucked from the earth or harvested a couple days before I got it, all I simply need to do is add salt and pepper or an herb from our herb garden here on property, and everything's just tasty, just that simple. The style of the menu, I think I would have to classify it as country French inspired with hints of Asia. We're here at the barn at Chaumette Winery. We actually still do have the tasting room as well as the Grapevine Grill here on property, but this is one of our newest events. And behind me you have the Grapevine Grill, another one, a second one, as well as a wood-fired pizza oven. This afternoon we're going to be making an Indian spiced Jones Heritage Farm lamb kebab and a salad of fresh local carrot and watercress. And we're going to pair that with Chaumette's 2012 Norton Reserve. All right, so we have our lamb kebab. Now the spice on this is known as an Indian warm spice. So there's quite a bit of cinnamon, black peppercorn, clove, really some wonderful spices that naturally complement our Chaumette Norton 2013. With that, we are going to have a classic Indian raita, and finally the locally harvested watercress with shredded carrot and preserved lemon vinaigrette. Now the watercress naturally has a pepperiness to it, much like arugula. And I'm a real big fan of that pairing with the Norton, because the Norton has a rather peppery finish. You have a lot of spice and pepper here, you've got a little bit of pepper there, and then the peppery finish of the Norton complementing the gaminess of the lamb. With the rosé, I'm going to be making a pizza right in the pizza oven. We make the dough from scratch. It gets onion jam, Beige Farms fresh goat cheese, Meyer Farm pork belly that was slow roasted in the oven in its own fat, and then we're going to garnish that with Ladd Farm local spring greens. And the reason I chose the rosé with the pizza is real simple. Rosé is light, bright, and slightly acidic. There's a lot of fattiness in the pizza, and those two things will naturally complement one another. As you take a sip of the wine and another bite of the pizza, it'll be almost as if you're taking a brand new bite every single time. And then our third thing is the unoaked Chardonnay, 2013 Chaumette unoaked Chardonnay. And I'll be pairing that with grilled tilapia, and that's getting a rhubarb sauce as well as a spring potato salad. And the reason I chose that is real simple. Unoaked is very acidic, very lemony. Fish seems to be a natural choice, and the lightness of the creme fraiche that's in the potato salad complements it really, really well. We are part of the farming community, being a winery and a vineyard, that it grossly affects everything that we do. The terroir of this area affects the flavors of our food as well as the style in which we cook.
Okay, we're there. This is essentially the texture of like a warm pudding. It is just rich and decadent. Now Adam, down at Chaumette, I don't know if you caught what he was saying, but he sources almost all of his ingredients within 35 miles of that winery. It's really amazing, his commitment to not only making local wine taste delicious, paired with the food, but using as many local ingredients as possible. All right, now all I'm going to do is incorporate the custard with the gorgeous whipped cream. Nothing decadent about this dessert. And all you want to do is fold them together. So there's a lot of whisking, clearly, in this dessert. Your arm gets a little bit tired, but it's really quite easy. The hardest part is just sustaining that whisking action for 15 minutes. Other than that, you don't have to have a lot of kitchen skills. It's something that a lot of people can tackle and impress their friends with. So then, all you need to do is spoon this thick, rich gorgeousness as gracefully as possible into your glass. I have strawberries and blackberries and blueberries. You can really use anything that's in season. See all the fruits just sinking into this puddle of custard. It's amazing. Now these cookies, you can crumble them on top to add a little bit of texture, or you can serve it alongside, or even just dip it right in. And of course, I'm going to pair the Sabayon with the ice wine that was used to make it. It's a perfect match and a delicious way to showcase local wine. So cheers.